PlayStation, the console that brought us epic adventures, legendary characters, and the ability to rage quit in glorious HD. Whether you started with the gray brick of the PS1 or you're still trying to find a PS5 without selling a kidney, PlayStation has been a gaming powerhouse for nearly 30 years. So let's dive into the story of PlayStation, from its weird origins to why Sony will never stop making controllers that somehow look the same, but also completely different. The Nintendo betrayal. Fun fact: PlayStation was almost a Nintendo console. Back in the late 80s, Sony and Nintendo were actually working together on a CD-based console. Sony was all hyped, ready to drop their new system, and then, bam, Nintendo ditched them. Like a bad breakup, Nintendo ran off to Philips, yes, the people who make light bulbs, and tried to make a console with them instead. Sony, heartbroken, furious, ready for revenge. So they said, fine, we'll make our own console. And in 1994, the PlayStation was born. Moral of the story? Never ghost a tech company. The era of discs and memory cards. The PlayStation 1 was a game changer. It killed cartridges and made CDs the future. Suddenly, games had full-motion video, voice acting, and cutscenes that looked amazing for the time but now resemble melted action figures. But let's talk about memory cards. If you had a PS1, you know the pain of losing a memory card. Or worse, deleting your game saved by accident. Nothing ruined your week like erasing your entire progress in Final Fantasy VII because your sibling wanted to save their Tony Hawk's Pro Skater run. Then came the PS2 in 2000. It became the best-selling console of all time, and for good reason. It had DVD playback. That meant your parents were totally fine with you getting one because it's not just for games, it's for watching movies too, a classic gamer excuse. The console wars begin. The PS2 era was the golden age, but then came the console wars. Sony versus Microsoft, PlayStation versus Xbox, a rivalry as fierce as Coke versus Pepsi, Marvel versus DC, or people who put pineapple on pizza versus people with good taste. The PS3 arrived with Blu-ray discs, a $600 launch price, and a controller that looked like a boomerang before Sony panicked and changed it back. Meanwhile, the Xbox 360 was cheaper and had Halo, which meant a lot of players jumped ship to Microsoft. But Sony fought back, and by the time the PS4 came along, PlayStation was back on top, thanks to amazing exclusives like God of War, Spider-Man, and The Last of Us. The impossible-to-find PS5. And then in 2020 we got the PlayStation 5, a console so powerful it can run games at 120 FPS, assuming you can actually find one. For the first 2 years, the PS5 was rarer than a shiny Pokemon. People camped outside stores, scalpers bought them all, and Sony basically said, good luck, peasants. Now, years later, you can finally walk into a store and see a PS5 on the shelf, which is great because the PS6 is probably already being designed. The legacy of PlayStation. So, what makes PlayStation legendary? Maybe it's the iconic franchises. Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo, Final Fantasy. Maybe it's the controllers, which somehow always feel the same but also completely different with every generation. Or maybe it's because PlayStation just refuses to lose no matter how many times they mess up. Nintendo betrayed them? They made a console empire? PS3 almost ruined them? They came back stronger. PS5 was impossible to find? Well, okay, that one's on Sony. So, what's your favorite PlayStation memory, your first console, the game that blew your mind? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because just like PlayStation, this channel isn't going anywhere. Alright, I'm off to play God of War for the 50th time. See you in the next one.